Should be going live. Should be going live, boy. Should be live right now. It says I'm live, but I'm not seeing myself yet on the screen. Aha! Here we are. Okay, now I'll turn the volume down. Okay. Hello. Somebody's waiting, so I know there's at least one person on here. It says one waiting, and yet why would they be waiting? I'm live. It's very mysterious. So if you're on here now, haha, could you give me a little shout out? Hey, Lori. Okay, great. So is everything all right technically? Can you see me and hear me? A little bit of latency there, so I get a little delay before I get an answer, even if you do answer. All right, well, I haven't seen an answer yet from Lori, so I'm going to go ahead and assume that you can hear me and assume that you can see me, since I see a high Udrin there. The tech on these things is very stressful. Livestream. Okay, hi there. I'm Lopen Udrin, and I am coming to you from Oakland, California, in the middle of the pandemic, same as you. And today's topic is Jailbreak, from a prison of our own making. And where does that title come from? How did I think that up? Well, it's an interesting thing. I've been contemplating very deeply this traditional Buddhist idea of karma, both in this life and also there's the idea in Buddhism, as there is in many Eastern religions, that okay, now the comments are coming up. We got it. Okay, great. Yeah, all right, we're good now. I can see them faster now, not having to look at YouTube itself. Thank you for saying hello, Lori. So Lori and whoever else is going to watch as the months and years go on to this webcast, you know, I'm following along in this traditional 19th century Buddhist text and seeing, you know, what I can bring in that would be relevant to us in our particular circumstances now. And the topic that we've come to is karma. And karma, I think, you know, probably the people that are watching this channel know that it isn't exactly how karma, the word came into our vocabulary as Americans, but it didn't come in exactly accurately because the way with it it's regarded, you know, when you talk about karma, is a sort of tinge with the idea of retribution, like only negative, number one, and also that there's something like you did something bad and some force outside of yourself is going to whack you for it. And that's really not really what karma means. So karma traditionally is about our, well, karma actually means actions. So, you know, in the most basic form of Buddhism, most simple form of Buddhism, let's say, the bad deeds you did and the good deeds you did are all shaping you now, shaping your experience in this life. And to what degree depends on how people interpret different traditional Buddhist scriptures and so forth, whether it's like whether this pandemic is an individual phenomena of me, and whether it's, some people think there's such a thing as shared karma. Scholars say, well, there really can't be if something is shared in karma, because we only have an individual mind stream. There is no universal mind stream. So like it would be our, instead of saying our collective karma, it would be our shared perception of the world based on our habits from the past. And I've just been really kind of stuck on this point, how to present this, and I could really use some help. If anybody who watches this week or later wants to talk to me about it. Karma is, and rebirth are basic tenets of Buddhism, and to try to skip over them and talk about everything in the here and now, it can be done, and we'll try to do that today. But the Buddha, the way the Buddha's words from 2,500 years ago get to us is through texts called sutras, which are tales of interactions between the Buddha and his students, either sort of on a metaphorical level or on a very literal level. But all of them were written down hundreds of years after the Buddha passed away, whether you look at the schools that ascribe a very, Buddha is a very human person, and the early scriptures as being really literal, or the Mahayana Sutras, which are mind-bending and have all sorts of supernatural elements in them. They were all recorded for the first time. They were oral tradition. They were recorded for the first time, a long time after Buddha passed away. And Buddha's way before Jesus. Hey, Sutra, heart. Speaking of which, we're talking about sutras. And faith. So karma is predicated, the idea of karma is predicated really on the idea of rebirth. And the idea, both these things were through the faith that the Buddha had a divine eye, that in his enlightenment he saw everything as it actually was. All the mysteries. What is it? All of life's mysteries. All of life's mysterious questions. They were all clear to Buddha in an instant, sitting under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, the Vajra seat. And here we are in 2020, and where we live in the United States, where there's we find ourselves as Buddhists or people who like Buddhism in a strange position where there's a real, as we can see every single day, split between secular humanism, generally in the blue states, and very devoted, faith-filled Christians. Let's, best case scenario, in the red areas, and this huge culture clash that's going on between them, right? And yet, for followers of Tibetan Buddhism, most of the Tibetan Buddhist teachers are pretty fundamentalists themselves. And so am I, because I've been influenced by them. And I have faith, my primary faith has been in my own teachers, who I just trust. It's hard to express, because if you've never met Lama Tarchin Rinpoche and seen him for who he was, then there wouldn't be any real reason to believe in enlightenment or believe what he said. There's just a moment of meeting a great master. Some people experience this in reading, texts where you go, yeah, if he thinks that's right, then that must be the way it is. So I'm not struggling with that as an internal struggle, but I do think I want to bridge the gap with. I've also, I regularly encounter people who think that I'm a religious nut. I'm dogmatic, and all these words that we usually apply to, warmongering, fundamentalist Christians and Muslims and so forth. And yet, when I say, for example, when I put up my SOAR video about a ceremony that's supposed to benefit those who have passed on, I got at least one, like, this is the biggest bunch of hooey I've ever heard. And why do you accept this dogma? So, because I'm writing a book based on our interactions on these little Mondays, I'm coming up to this point where I have to, yeah. Lori's been inspired by, as she says in her comment, by watching Lamatar Rinpoche's videos. You can go to heartteachings.com and see them. My other teachers, Lama Pema Dorje Rinpoche and Odzum Pelo Rinpoche, are not readily available on video. Pema Dorje Rinpoche really didn't like to be videoed. He allowed me to have one up for a short time on my YouTube channel, but then he had me take it down. He was very humble, and he didn't feel confident about his English. And I'm certainly not competent in Tibetan, so I couldn't translate. He would have left it up there, I think, if he had a good translator. And my other Lama from Tibet is just not in range of, we're just for situationally not able to circulate a lot of videos of him. So I recommend there are free ones up there, and then there's whole courses that you can make a donation. I won't say a donation, you have to purchase, and help support the whole enterprise of preserving his teachings. Anyway, so I came into this. I came from a family that had believed in all sorts of mystical things, so it's not. It wasn't weird to me, and I myself believe in my innermost heart in some kind of life after death. But I have no personal insight into remembering a past life or seeing future lives. I'm not a Buddha, So this is what I came to. I'd be very happy to start a study group on this topic, because I think it's a real critical one if we're ever going to bring authentic Dharma into American life, or bring American life into authentic Dharma. There's a whole genre of literature about looking into stories of rebirth and looking scientifically into it. There was Ian Stevenson at the University of Virginia who has passed on, and he's got a protege who is still carrying on with research there on the topic. And it would be very interesting to me. I've already downloaded one of the books from him. Raymond Moody, who also started out at the University of Virginia and then moved elsewhere, had 3 doctoral degrees in different areas: MD, PhD, PhD, and he did all the stuff you've heard about near-death experiences, and so we're always creeping up, and Parna, I can't remember his first name, put out a book in recent years on the near-death experiences. Yeah. I think it would be interesting to have a little group, and I don't know whether here or an interactive Zoom group might be better, where we just very honestly sit down and look at those books with all these accounts. Because maybe I'm a sucker. I naturally believe these things, and it's good for me to go towards areas that make me uncomfortable. And it makes me a little bit uncomfortable to look at these, to look at this topic really closely from a modern point of view. So, but I think it's, you know, Trungpa Rinpoche, who was himself very controversial, told a story. His teacher had told him, if you have something that's really scary to you, go right toward it. Don't try to avert your eyes. And he encountered an angry, snarling Tibetan mastiff at the gates of a monastery that had broken its chain and was running right at him. And their watchdogs are very ferocious, and it was coming at him like a pit bull, bigger. And instead of running away, he ran at it, and the dog totally backed off and was pacified in that particular case. So I think we have to watch our snarly watchdogs and go towards them instead of going away from them, and start reading some of these books and their critiques. So there have been critiques of Dr. Stevenson and his crew at University of Virginia, and if we got a big enough group, we could do an interview with the current guy who's still carrying on his research there. Wouldn't that be interesting? And really read and get what our most penetrating questions are about it. How in the world could you set up a study to actually prove? I mean, what they did was, I think, go to the place where the child remembered being born. They'd find children like, they'd have a birthmark here, and then the child would tell a story about how that was being stabbed, and they died being stabbed, perhaps not in their hand, but somewhere. And then and they were living in such and such a town, and they go there. And these were generally in Asian cultures where it was believed, rebirth was believed in. And there is a book of European stories, but it's much thinner. And the reviews of it, I haven't read it myself, said they were not all that, they were kind of neither here nor there stories. They weren't all that convincing when they were followed up upon. So I think it's a really important area to maybe we could pull Julie Rogers in from the Transitional Life Care group also. Maybe she could co-facilitate. Okay, so we'll look into that if you have any interest, Hart, or anybody else who watches us on next weeks, we could set that up. We do it on, there are obviously pluses and minuses to various formats. Okay, so because of this faith in cause and effect, that your actions, your bodily actions, your speech actions, and your mind actions a positive and negative, are believed all to have lasting effects, at least through this lifetime, and for the faithful, effects that can bloom in another lifetime. There's a huge amount of personal responsibility that falls on a Buddhist practitioner. It's just really hard to point your finger at somebody and say, you're the cause of my problems. You did it. It comes back, and you're looking at yourself in the eye. And it doesn't mean like we all have, there's no one advantage to viewing this play, this whole playing out of karma as going on over many years and lifetimes, is that it's not like, in your last lifetime you were definitely, if you're poor in this lifetime, you were definitely stingy in your last lifetime. Things are playing out through immeasurable lifetimes. And there's all these stories this week I looked at it's called, you can look in the 84,000 Ko, C-O, website at all these sutras that have been translated. And the one that is drawn upon the most is called The 100 Deeds. And it's about stories of people in one life and how that action ripened in another life. So, a lot of stories. I didn't have it in me to go and read all of them. It's summarized in the words of my perfect teacher in the Karma section. So, as the higher you go up and the more sophisticated you become in your Buddhist worldview, the more your mental motivations are looked at, because obviously your body isn't doing something unless your mind has thought it up, right? So it's mind that's in the lead. And so really looking at your intention rather than being literal, like, because if you, from a really basic point of view, there would be like if you kill someone, I'm going to go to the most extreme example, you're going to hell. And there is a Buddhist hell. So you're going to have a hellish existence, in subsequent incarnations. And it probably will shorten your life. But if you are a police officer and there's a sniper on a top of a building, and like in Las Vegas, and he's shooting down people, and he's got lots of a big magazine and plenty of bullets to go, and you shoot that, and the police officer kills that person. Is that the cause for rebirth in hell? And that's not, so it gets more sophisticated. Obviously it's not, that's the punchline. But in the traditional way, we're looking at ourselves in deeply ingrained ways that we look at that we perceive ourselves in the world. And if you think about why would you shoot somebody out of malevolence, it would be because you really had a hard and fast feeling about yourself, I and me and what I need, and that person is getting in my way, or they're attacking me, or they're against me, and I hate them because I, and they. So you really, really firmly believe in your own story about who you are and how important you're the most important person in the world. It's really rigid. And all of Buddhism is about breaking down that rigidity. And that really, they call it solidification, which is kind of a vague word. Looking and seeing, where is I? Where is Yudrin? Is she in my liver? Is she in my heart? Is she in my skin? Is she in my brain, which is where we might put her? What is that, and why is it the center of everything in the universe? So let's do some meditation. Looks like I finally got this app to work, and I haven't got anything fancy on it, but I can do this. Oh no, I can't. Are you getting a ting? Finally. Okay, I can make a triangle sound. I haven't figured out how to do a split screen yet, but now with this app I can bring in people from afar and have them on Skype up on the screen with me. Once I get that all figured out and have text up on the screen with me and so forth. Yay! So why don't we, on that note, look at ourselves. Try to find Lori and Hart and anyone else if you're practicing along with us later on. Sit up straight. Now, this is so traditional. Interestingly, it's found from the very lowest kind of most basic Buddhist teachings up to the very top. And we're always looking for where is I, where is me, and naturally one might look in. Maybe it's and you think it's in space, but let's do a little scan and try to figure out where our sense of self is, and if we can really find it there when we go looking for it. Okay. So now we're gonna chime the triangle. So, what did you find I? Where was I? Well, my observation was that I had a kind of feeling like I was getting warmer as I came around my heart, and interestingly, my throat and my head. Heart didn't think she found one. And then someplace in my midbrain, I thought well, it should be there. And I thought maybe behind my eyes, because that's, we're looking out, the world must be back here somewhere. But when I got closer and I tried to zoom in, I couldn't find I couldn't find I couldn't find Udrin there. – is kind of a relief. When you set down that whole story of self, the word in Tibetan is translated as self-grasping, daksin, and a sense of self. And have a sense of humor about it. Of course, we have the experience, like as if it is, as if there really is an I. But what if there really isn't? Then what have I spent my life doing? What would I like to spend my life doing if there isn't any I there? Nose in the eyes. Yeah, between your nose and the eyes. Oh, you mean like right there? Your third eye area? Or inside? When I was really doing a lot of retreat, you do a lot of, in either Dzogchen or Mahamudra, you do a lot of looking for thoughts, where they come from, where they go to. And third eye area. Mm-hmm. I'm looking. I'm not finding. But I understand the feeling of that should be where it is. That's a good idea. When I was really looking for thoughts and where your thoughts come from, where they go to, where your feelings coming from, where they go to, I thought I get a little sense of my thoughts sparking around in the brain area, but I couldn't. The more you look, the harder it is to pin down. And then my feelings felt like they come from the heart area, but that was just me. There wasn't anything you could nail down. So this thing that we call I is just we've made it up. And when you do shamatha meditation like we've been doing, and the thoughts settle down, you see that there's a whole lot of other thoughts going on that aren't the dominant thought. If you call the dominant chain of thoughts your concept of I think this, and I like this, I don't like that, and you create a kind of pathway that way. But then there's all sorts of other thoughts, just random things in there that we're kind of suppressing to make a story that is the Yudran story of victory and conquest. So I thought we could do a different kind of shamatha today. Shamatha meaning calm. I don't actually know in Sanskrit. Peace. Shanti is peace. So shamatha. I'm not sure. Maybe you know. But in Tibetan it's shine, abiding in peace. That's what we've mostly been doing. I found this wonderful practice from a man named Mipam, who lived in the 19th and 20th century. So let's just follow his instructions for a while. I thought it was interesting because it wasn't so obviously object-oriented as we usually think of shamatha being. Draw your ordinary awareness, that which is vividly clear, open, and brilliant, into the empty center of your heart and allow it to settle. This is what is meant by mind being turned upon itself. And within this experience, there is nothing whatsoever to focus upon. If mind exists, it should be found within the body. But it isn't to be found, not in the heart, and not anywhere else for that matter. Then when thoughts run wild, look toward their source and remain there with gentle tranquility. There's no need to really search for the mind now in this practice. Simply relax and abide where you find yourself. Nor is there any need to investigate whether there is a place to abide. Simply abide within mind. It's perfectly all right to simply relax as if preparing for sleep. This is a mode of resting. Anything else is unnecessary. I'm going to repeat the first paragraph again because that was kind of long, and we'll mainly focus on that, so to speak. Draw your ordinary awareness, that which is vividly clear, open, and brilliant, into the empty center of your heart, and allow it to settle. This is what is meant by mind being turned upon itself. And within this experience, there is nothing whatsoever to focus upon. It's an interesting instruction, isn't it? Because it says, draw your ordinary awareness into the empty center of your heart. But I think this is a typical instruction from in the Nyingma tradition of not. When I heard that, I was hearing, oh, bring your attention, your awareness, they'll call it the watcher, or, that which you perceive as your consciousness into your heart. But I think it's actually look back because of the term it says later, mind being turned upon itself. I think that's referring to having your watcher, your awareness look towards your heart center. So it's akin to what I've told you before with like putting your awareness out here and looking back. Sometimes they'll say at your own awareness or at your eyes. They'll even say look at your eyes, but here they're saying look at your heart. But we don't have the Tibetan here, so I don't know. These are very good translators from the Lotsawa House website. So, like the 10 Commandments, they're the 10 non-virtues that are addressed when we talk about karma. And I think, in a way, it's like a Sunday school class for kids when these topics are addressed. And they were definitely taught to young monks. But on the other hand, if you look at them, first I like to flip them into the positive, into the 10 virtues. For example, turning your mind away from hatred and into a desire to help other people. That's one of the mental ones. Establishing yourself in a true and authentic view. You could look at that as in a really kind of harsh religious way. But we do all want to have our perspective be present and fresh, and taking in what's really true. We don't want to be barking up the wrong tree in terms of how we view the world. And some of the speech ones are, telling the truth, not lying, reconciling people that have disputes with each other, and speaking pleasantly, stopping yakking all the time, chattering away, and instead reciting prayers, for example. And prayers in Buddhism mean requesting wisdom from your sources of wisdom, from the deep inner source of wisdom, praying for a rebirth in a place where you experience Dharma, praying for all the living beings on the world, praying for your worst, most terrible enemies, harmers and demons and so forth, praying for them, wishing them well. Wonderful prayers. And when you meet somebody like that, these great old lamas, they had little cues during the day. Like you get in a car to go somewhere and it's time to say the Tashi Sekpa. I always forget the name of that one. Reciting about names of a lot of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and so forth. So there are little cues. When you get up in the morning, you say a certain prayer. There are even little mantras for peeing and pooping. I guess to that degree, taking a shower, you might say the Vajrasattva mantra, or prayer to be cleansed of your negative karma and so forth. It's beautiful. So you incorporate you see flowers, like the flowers on my front step. I share them on Twitter a lot, wherever I go, and I love plants and trees and so forth. I find these real soulful plants and throw them up on my Twitter. Some people would use Instagram for that, but not me. So this is the symbol for Mount Meru and the four continents, so forth. This is a mandala offering, like offering the whole world to the wisdom, to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, the embodiments of wisdom, right? And wherever you go, if you see flowers, you could say, oh, I'm offering these. Stop and say your mandala verse from your Lindro text, for example. I've told this story before, Lori, so you probably heard this, but maybe Hart hasn't heard it. My friend Nancy was going to visit the Dongsi Tili Rinpoche at his compound in New York, and there's a bunch of kids in a kids Buddhist school there, and this is probably 10 years ago, and it was a really, really hot day, and there's a river you can get in a car and go to, so they load these kids up in vans, and they went to a beautiful river and perfect for swimming, and she strips off, she has her suit underneath her clothes, she strips it all off, and she runs into the water, splash, splash, yay, cooling off, and she looks back, and there's all the children offering a mandala of this beautiful water, and this cooling relief on this day. And, some secular humanists might look at that and go, oh my God, these brainwashing these children with this superstitious mumbo jumbo. But I dare them to not like what it does to the minds of those people to be trained that way. Anybody would much rather be around people who were trained that way, as long as they aren't putting their religious trip onto you, right? Saying you have to make a mandala offering. There's worse things, right? So what I'm saying is each one of these things, even down to the physical acts of, saving the lives of sentient beings instead of murdering them, there's a broader purpose. Of course, every moral fiber of our human body thinks it's bad to kill humans, right? But Buddhists carry it further, and that it's negative to kill animals and insects if we can possibly avoid it. And you look at what it's doing to your mind, the mind that kills, the mind that would want to kill. If I can't find I there, and I'm just a simple shamatha practitioner, for example, really relaxed, without any big, forceful agenda pushing for my thing, why would I ever want to kill a living being out of hatred? And so anyway, Patrón Paché said they all actually not killing and having correct views of reality were the most two important of all the 10. I won't go into all of them. And for me, as a beginning, I was not that nice a person when I started in Buddhism. And I started over with Nindro like a child, but I was 30-something. And I really very carefully went through these things. And the practice you do when you're trying to reform yourself from... I'm not saying I was really negative, but I had a lot of harsh political beliefs and BS in my mind. So it was really helpful to me to go through. And at the end of each day, if you want to make this a practice, you check on, how'd I do? Was I helping living beings, or was I harming living beings? Was I honest? Did I take anything that wasn't given? Down to this minutest, donut. And was I doing my best to establish a really clear view of what's going on in this world and relationship between myself and my perceived world? Did I create discord between people? Oh, that was, when you're a political person, that's your bread and butter. Or did I try to reconcile people? So you do that, and then in the morning when you're starting out, you say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to practice virtue today. So let's do another little practice before we close. I found an interesting quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. Cause and effect, means and ends, seed and fruit cannot be severed, for the effect already blooms in the cause, and end pre-exists in the means, the fruit in the seed. Here's another little section of Mipam's shamatha practice. Just as the brilliance of sunlight increases when it refracts and reflects on turbulent waters, emotions and thoughts proliferate in an agitated mind. Attempting to stop thoughts simply will not work. However, when the waters are no longer agitated but settled and calm, the reflection of light rays will decrease. Just like that, allow the mind, which is the source, to settle calmly without mental agitation. Um, I've been doing okay this week. I hope you all been doing okay. I'm just about to say goodbye, but I didn't really. Everything going along okay at school, Hart, and at work, Lori? I know you're working long hours, helping people, and that's really great. Bet you both are. And for me, as a person who isn't working a regular job, I had the opportunity this week. The nursing board found me and invited me to come back to work as a nurse after 13 years or something, to help in the epidemic. And so that put me through some changes where I had to figure out whether I was a good thing or not. I decided it wasn't a good thing because I would be incompetent. But if I'd been competent, it would have been interesting. Then I'd have a choice about being 61 and whether I wanted to put myself in that kind of danger. Oh, good. I'm glad you're okay, Lori. But what I've found overall, you're doing okay, Hart? Oh, that's good too. I don't know if it's being true for you or not, but this key moment when I first open my eyes in the morning, it's like solid gold if you can catch that moment and set a meditative state of mind at that point. So try to unfurl before the thoughts come up and start driving you to jump out of bed. And actually, Patron Pache said that in this chapter also. Before you just are propelled, your karmic habitual patterns or have you leaping out of bed or whatever you do in the morning, to take a moment there before the whole thing goes, the whole story, about your life and everything, to relax in that state of not knowing and not having concepts. You're awake, so you're not in the state of stupidity of being asleep, but you haven't started the whole story. So, try to relax there for at least a few moments. Some people are then, I suspect you're both Vajrayana practitioners, are doing one of the Vajra Armor mantras. So it's really working for me well before I get my coffee, and I have the liberty of meditating for quite a long time there. To check in, not rush into thought, and then when the thoughts start to come, then I say the Vajra Armor mantra, which, if you're watching this and you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a mantra for reducing your susceptibility to epidemics. There's another faith-based practice. And then I say it all through the coffee making and the dishwashing. I don't have pets and I don't have a significant other, so I don't have that. I have that continuity. So if I ever, when I think about getting a pet, I think, oh, that'd be great to have a cute little thing there, and then I think about them jumping on my bed in the morning, and I couldn't do this nice little magical moment. So we all have so I decided against it. Stingy, I am. All right, so that's it for this week. Thank you for hanging with me, and I'll see you next week. Who knows what'll happen? Bye now.